we do well to clarify and to be precise with our language whenever we're possible. In doing so, we are well served to go back to traditional usage of the language. And in that way, when we run across it in the traditional writings and moral theology manuals, we recognize those terms as they were traditionally used and still had been used for a majority of history. Only within the last 100 years or so that we've seen the diminution of the precision which used to be in language. And with this vagary, modernism has become very prevalent because modernism relies on vagary and ambiguity, not only in the meaning of the words, but sentence structure, the way statements are made, etc. It's been quipped that the devil's favorite color is gray. We really live in a black and white world, but the gray shading is a man-made imprecision. Up is up, down is down. Math has true values. And so what we see in all of this is an attack on higher thought, on intellectual precision, whereby we discuss God, doctrine, dogma, etc. And to that end, I want to talk about a few words. Among them, the first word I want to talk about is evil. And so evil modernly has come to have a connotation that is much different than its traditional use. St. Thomas and the authors whom St. Thomas cites, going way back, differentiated evil from wicked, evil meaning a disorder, and a disorder either a privation, meaning a lack, or an augmentation or an excess. But evil is a disorder. It can be considered even an exaggeration. Wicked was reserved to that which was morally depraved, which was morally disordered. In this description, then, what you would see is an object in and of itself could be evil. The behavior, if it's immoral, would be wicked. And so you can apply both evil and wicked in this narrow sense and get a clearer understanding. Let's go back to evil. It's either in the privation or the augmentation. If you simply look at your hand, and hopefully you have 5 digits, you have 4 fingers and 1 thumb. If you remove one of those digits, that is an evil hand, as defined by St. Thomas, meaning it is disordered. It is not as it is intended to be made. It is lacking. And so by the same token, if you look at your hand and you have 1 thumb and 5 other fingers for 6 total digits, then this is an evil hand, evil by augmentation, because it is not as a hand should be. So evil is there is something in the thing. There is a defect, or there's a privation or an augmentation. So you see that sins may be either in the privation, not doing the thing which should be done, or in the augmentation, doing the thing which is good to the excess. Gluttony, overeating, for example, as an expression of gluttony. We must eat for nutrition. However, if we overdo that, if we lack the moderation, now this becomes sinful. It's sinful in the base, in the most primary aspect, because it is a misuse of a faculty or several faculties. Once you see it that way, then it's easier to police yourself, to become circumspect, if you will, and say, is what I'm doing evil? One of the key aspects or discernment points, is it a lack, a privation? Am I not doing what I should be doing? Sloth is an example of a privation, an evil which is a privation. Or am I overdoing, which is an evil of an augmentation? And then if we go to look at what is wicked, then what is wicked is that which is morally wrong. So there's a moral issue there. And it can be done either in the privation or the augmentation. It can fail either way. The virtues are being militated against on either side. So if a virtue is the virtus, the middle of humility, there are two opposite errors. The diminution, thinking less of oneself than they are, false humility, self-condemnation, self-deprecation. The other side is thinking more of oneself than they are, and that's arrogance. If wicked is the moral deviancy, then you look at, especially in sins of thought, word, and deed. So for an evil thought, the reason the thought is evil is because it's a misuse of the faculty. It's a misuse of the intellect. It is a misuse of the realm, of the thing, the intellect. But if my thought is of adultery, then the thought itself wicked because it is against the moral law. So a good way to think of it is evil is a transgression against the natural law, what nature intended and what is right in nature. And then wicked is a transgression of the moral law, what is morally correct. So my sins of thought, if I think of, for instance, because I do not have children, I should have children, therefore IVF is a possibility. The first deviant thought is not IVF is a possibility. The first deviant thought is I should have children. It is at that point the conformity with God's will, which is the right use of both intellect and will, if you follow that discussion. The thought, I should have children, that's actually a disordered or evil thought, because it is a presumptive thought. It is a presumption, it's an entitlement. That thought's not consistent with providence, trust in God, etc. Then the consideration of IVF is the evil thought, because it is there that I have, the thought of IVF is now the wicked thought, because now I've transgressed a moral boundary with the specificity of, I will do this thing which the church tells me not to do in order to achieve the end, which was the result of that deviant thought, that idea that I deserve children. We don't go all the way back and understand that when we start to misuse the intellect and the will and entertain these things which are not consistent in conformity with God's will, that is in fact an evil. It is a misuse of a faculty, which meets the definition of evil. Then when we put the specificity to it, more often than not, it will be a wicked idea or activity, a wicked statement, etc. And when we say, for instance, if a person has same-sex attraction, so that attraction is happening in the intellect, and it is a crime, the virtue that's being assailed is the virtue of temperance, which is a moderation of the attraction to created goods, which means that the attraction has to be not only right ordered, but it has to be moderated. The more often that I make those associations, misuse those faculties, as St. Thomas talks about, the passions, the appetites, the desires, the more that I make that association and engage in that evil or disordered thought, the more likely I am to do the wicked thing. And then you see how they work together. What we're told is as long as you don't act on it, you're not culpable. And that's not true at all. It's not, the acting is the entertaining the thought. The evil part is allowing the attraction and the association to be made. And then the wicked aspect of it is to continue to make that association in opposition to right order.